It's a new year with plenty of new teams and plenty of news. But the COVID-19 pandemic is still with us, and so are the masks, spectator-free DSPs, and all the protocols necessary to safely host an event such as the MPUMALANGA400. But other than that, there was plenty to cheer about when the Saccs got back to action a few weeks ago. All the slip-sliding action is brought to you by Toyota Gazoo, Ford, Pirelli, and new sponsors, Euro. When the 2020 Saccs season got underway, COVID-19 was nothing more than a headline from China. Fast forward to the 2021 event, and everyone was wearing masks, screened, sanitized, and used to living with the virus that has played such a major part in our lives for the last 12 months. But at least we're back racing and excited to be back in Dahlstrom for the start of the 2021 season. There was plenty of news in the paddock this time around, with everything from new teams to new pairings, but possibly the biggest news was the signing of a new sponsor.
Very exciting stuff to have a new sponsor, international sponsor, in the form of Euro, a big lubricant manufacturer from the Netherlands. They've been in business for over 40 years. And I think it's testament to the fact that we run a great series. I think this series is probably one of the best cross-country series in the world at the moment.
With the finances in place, all eyes could turn to the teams who made the journey to Dahlstrom for round one of the new season. Defending champions Toyota Gazoo Racing were there to defend their honour, but without Henk Latergen, who was still on the mend after surgery to repair his shoulder following his crash at the Dakar in January.
So we got multiple rally champion Guy Bottrell from the Toyota stable. We've already done a test and a test rally in Barbaspan, and Guy's partnered with Brett, so they've shown great potential.
The Toyotas would be facing stiff competition from the blue corner, with Ford finally rolling out their new Class FIA cars in the hands of Lance and Gareth Woolridge. Team principal Neil Woolridge was cautiously optimistic about their chances.
We're very excited with the new car. It's really performing well. We've done quite a lot of testing. As I say, it would have been nice to do some more, but we're very happy with the performance. As with any new project, it's going to take a bit of time.
The Redline Motorsport team was also well represented, with a number of well-known faces as well as some new ones joining the fray in Dahlstrom.
It's a new year. Dahlstrom's always tough. It's always tough. It's always wet. It's always technical, and we know the finishing ratios are not great here. So there's a lot of work ahead of the guys this week.
In terms of the individual championships, the two main players in the open wheel categories were also there to defend their titles. Tim Howes walked away with the crown in 2020 and was back in action, albeit in a new set of wheels.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I'm very thankful to everyone who's helped me get here because it's been tough. So thanks to all the sponsors, and I'm very happy to be here.
And finally, the man who upset the Mostert apple cart, Nico Durant, was ready to take the fight to the rest of the highly competitive Class G field.
Oh, well, it was long COVID season, but I think this year will be good.
So, plenty to look forward to in Dahlstrom, where the 2021 championship got underway on the 26th of March. And as ever, the Saccs gave back to the community surrounding the area of the race, with the now traditional handover of school shoes, supported in Dahlstrom by Smart Step School Shoes. And then, with all the pre-race formalities taken care of, it was time for the talking to stop and the racing to finally get underway. The MPUMALANGA400 was again supported by the lads from Malalan Toyota, who have turned this into a home race of sorts. This year round, the race featured an innovative format, with the Pirelli qualifying race taking place on the Friday morning of the race, followed by the first of 3 racing loops later in the day. Then, 2 more race loops followed on the Saturday, bringing the total race distance close to the 400-kilometre goal, and offering a stern challenge to the crews in the process. First order of business then, the Pirelli qualifier. For this year's race, the qualifying race was cut down to just 12 kilometers in distance. The sole purpose? To determine the starting position for the first of the 3 race loops. As such, though, the crews had no choice but to go hell for leather from the get-go, or face an uphill battle from further down the order. After a short, sharp dash through 12 kilometers of sodden and slippery terrain, it was Michael and Jean de Beer who topped the charts in Class G. The pair putting 5 seconds between themselves and Werner and Leon Mostert, who went second fastest. Big Lance Trathui and Adrian Roots certainly didn't hold anything in reserve, not only going fastest in the specials, but posting the 6th fastest time overall. A stonking performance by the big man from KZN.
No, it was proper. You got to go, because if you make a mistake here, you're just losing a huge amount of time. So there's no place to make that time back if you make a mistake.
Onto the production category, where the MPUMALANGA400 lads showed that their Giftknecht still had what it takes. Brothers Johan and Werner Horn went 3rd fastest and outqualified their nearest Class T rivals by a massive 27 seconds.
No, we had a good run. We had actually a good time.
And finally, pure joy in the Ford Castrol cross-country team's camp as Lance Woolridge and Alvin Vonk put their brand new Ford Racing Ranger on pole despite the damp conditions. They pipped arch rivals Toyota Gazoo Racing SA's Janelle de Villiers and Dennis Murphy by 5 seconds.
Can't really read too much in it and don't know if we've done ourselves a favor or not by going to open the route now, but luckily today's not too long.
Let's take a look at the standings after the Pirelli qualifying race. Woolridge and Vonk were on top of the pops in Class FIA. Class T saw the Horns at the top of the pile, followed by Henny de Klerk and Werner Weiss in 2nd place. Over in the special vehicles, Trathui and Roots were in a league of their own. And finally, the De Beers had the upper hand in Class G with the Mostards in 2nd. At this point, the race would usually wind down for the day as the crews prepared for the Saturday's loops. But in Dahlstrom, things worked slightly differently. And just a few hours after the qualifier, it was time to tackle the first of the race's 3 competitive loops. This one took place to the north of the town, in the area between the fly fishing mecca and the area known as Tontelduis. At 100 kilometers in length, it would offer the longest loop of the race, but it certainly played a key role in the outcome. At the head of the field, the new Ford Ranger of Lance Woolridge found the going tough, having to open up the route in the wet and slippery conditions. The pair powered through the 100-kilometer stage, but lost nearly 3 minutes despite their best efforts.
We were okay through the first half, and then the second half got to a lot of cut grass in the mountains and that, so we battled a bit there.
They had TGRSA's Guy Bottrell and Brett Cummings ahead of them. The Italian pulling out all the stops to leapfrog all the way from 11th after qualifying to 2nd in the overall standings, just about a minute ahead of the chasing Ford.
I did. That was phenomenal. The first half of the loop, we didn't have any GPS, so we were driving by sight and the little notes that we have in off-road, so that was quite an eye-opener.
But the pick of the bunch was Brian Baragwanath and Tay Perry, who brought their fire-breathing CR6 through the stage in the fastest time, besting Bottrell and Cummings by 50 seconds to go to bed as the overnight leaders.
These rolling hills, it's a roller coaster of a ride, but you're sort of in a minefield waiting to hit some rocks.
The opening loop was also good for Gareth Woolridge and Boyd Dreyer in the 2nd of the new Ford Racing Rangers. The pair went 4th fastest and were right there in the thick of it. The same couldn't be said for De Villiers and Murphy, however, as they lost power steering just 20 kilometers into the loop and went tumbling down the order. At the same time, TGRSA's Shamir Variawa, partnered with Donnie Stassen for this race, had a hairy moment when they hit a rock hidden in a muddy rut. The Hilux shot skywards, but landed on all 4s. It was a massive impact that injured Variawa, who had to take it easy for the rest of the loop. The Horn brothers were clearly enjoying their outing on their home race, and the pair left many crews in much newer and more expensive cars in their dust on the opening loop. Their Class T Toyota Hilux might be in its 11th year of racing, but that didn't seem to hold them back at all, as they went fastest in their class yet again. Vos Prinsloo and Andre Vermeulen were still the next best Class T crew, but they lost a further 2 minutes to the Flying Horns in the opening loop. Still, there was a lot of racing still to come. Prinsloo had a small buffer over Christo Rose, who was still in 3rd place in the Class Ts. The battle in the Class Gs raged as fierce as ever, with the Mostards back in the lead of the race after loop number 1, a position they are most familiar with.
That first 30 Ks, I tell you, I was shouting in the car. It was just so much fun in this car.
They had youngsters Ken Rutherford and Cabello Makinyani on their tail in 2nd place. The pair were not only quick during the opening loop, but were also pleased to bring on a new sponsor to the sport in 2021.
I did start off quite shaky, very nervous at first, but as we got into it, the routes got better and better, very enjoyable.
We've been involved in cycling. We support the Lions cricket team, and now getting involved in racing. It's really about supporting the youth.
And in Class A, Trathui and Roots continued to pummel the competition. The big man continued his relentless assault on the route, posting the fastest time yet again. Even so, Price Moore and Braithwaite were on a charge of their own and had moved into second place 1 minute 12 seconds behind the leaders, so they were still very much in touch. Third place in Class A belonged to Clint Gibson and Alaric Smith, who were nearly 8 minutes behind Price Moore at the end of day one. As for defending champion Tim Howes and Don Thompson, things didn't quite go to plan. The pair suffered a broken rear spring early in the loop before drive shaft problems further curtailed their progress. They ended the day nearly an hour behind and well out of contention. Let's take a look at the full standings after the qualifying race and opening loop of the MPUMALANGA400. Baragwanath and Perry were in the overall lead, as well as that of Class FIA, with Bottrell and Cummings in second. Woolridge and Vonk had now slipped down to third. In Class T, the Horns held steady at the top, with Prinsloo and Vermeulen in second and Rose and Olivier taking third. Class G saw the Mostards as leaders at the end of day number one, whilst Rutherford and Makanyani were in second, with Bradbury and Buertas taking third. Finally, Trethuri and Rurt stayed ahead in the specials, with Price Moore and Braithwaite in second, well ahead of Gibson and Smith in third. And that wrapped up day one of the MPUMALANGA400 round one of the 2021 SACCS. Join us again shortly as we bring you all the action from the remaining race loops, which took place on the Saturday of the race weekend. Welcome back to Dahlstrom, where the weather was still a little cold with lots of moisture in the air following the welcome rain in the period leading up to the race. The new racing format saw some racing take place the day before, but the bulk of the action was all planned for this day, with 3 separate loops on the cards. As race leaders following the action from the day before, the honours of opening up the road belonged to Brian Baragwanath and Tay Perry in their Century Racing CR6. 2 minutes later, it was cross-country rookie Guy Bottrell's turn to drop the clutch in the factory Toyota Gazoo Racing Hilux, with Brett Cummings reading the notes. There was much excitement and anticipation around the 2 fresh-out-the-box petrol turbo-powered Ford Castrol cross-country racing Rangers in the hands of the Woolridge brothers. Lance and co-driver Alvin Vonk were off first, followed by younger brother Gareth, with Boyd Dreyer doing the navigation duties. Next up, another Lance, but this Italian was behind the wheel of the monstrous Bat Venom special vehicle. We're of course talking of former Class A champions Lance Trethuri and Adrian Rutz, who were closely followed by the first of the Class T runners in the form of the Horn brothers, Johan and Werner from Malalang. Let's start with the several battles that were raging in the popular and still growing Class G for so-called side-by-side vehicles. The list of teams that were forced to retire quite early on included promising 18-year-olds Kent Rutherford and Cabello Makanyani, who started the day's action from a fine second position, as well as Simon Murray and Akim Bergman, to name just a few. When the times were added after the first loop of Saturday morning, it was brothers Michael and Jean de Beer who reached the DSP in 5th position. The current 4th place belonged to defending Class G champions Nico Durant and J.G. Claassen, a mere 49 seconds up the road. There was some daylight between Durant in 4th and the provisional podium placings. Currently, 3rd place belonged to the Lani brothers of Cecil and Eladis, who had a lead of more than 6 minutes over the chasing pack. They were in turn around 13 minutes behind the pairing of Dean Bradbury and Timmy Buertas, who held 2nd position at this crucial part of the race. Which meant that class stalwarts and former champions Werner and Leon Mostert were once again showing their pace at the front of the field with a lead of 3 minutes after nearly 4 hours worth of racing so far.
But now, you know, coming up in the numbers and the low numbers, I'm so keen to try and push, but I know I mustn't because I need to get this car to the finish today. I have to get it to the finish.
If you want dust, or in this case mud, coupled with thunder and unlimited amounts of power, then you need look no further than at the Mad Maxes of Class A in the special vehicle category. Defending Class A champion Tim Howes, now with Don Thompson as the navigator, failed to finish the first loop, whilst the winners of this race back in 2020, Clint Gibson and Alaric Smith, were forced to retire early on the Saturday morning due to a broken side shaft and other mechanical issues. Cross-country stalwarts John Thompson and Marisa Matten didn't make it much further as they too were forced to throw in the towel. The culprit? A broken gearbox. There was havoc throughout the field, with the first few kilometres on the day also claiming Trace Price-Moore and Bulla Buertas pretty much decimating the entire Class A's. Except for this one, the big Bat Venom driven by big Lance Trathui and the somewhat smaller Adrian Rutz. The Italian is a former champion and knows a thing or two about manhandling this machine, which is exactly what he did. Not only did he dominate the category, but he mixed it up with the four-wheel drive cars in the other categories to finish the first of Saturday's racing loops in an amazing third position overall.
I'm tough to be where we are. It was hard work. There's lots and lots of water, and it's very, very slippery, and the surface is changing all the time.
And on to the tin tops, or production class vehicles as we know them. So let's start with Class T, where Mpumalanga locals and brothers Johan and Werner Horn had their work cut out in an attempt to keep their aging Malalan Toyota Hilux ahead of the chasing pack that consisted of no less than 4 Neil Woolridge Motorsport Ford Rangers. Malcolm Koch and son Franz were pushing hard to make up for the time lost in qualifying the day before, but managed to move ahead of the similar Ford Ranger of class newcomers Christo Rose and Arno Olivier. Popular driver Vos Prinsloo and the experienced navigator Andre Vermeulen were doing a great job of comfortably hanging on to second place in the class when a problem with their steering rack forced them to the sidelines. The result was more than an hour in lost time. Meanwhile, the Horn brothers could care less about the Class T battle as they were fighting it out at the very front of the field. A remarkable achievement considering their Class T Hilux, or Gifpeel as it is now affectionately known, belongs in a museum. Well, that's according to Werner anyway. Either way, the Malalan Toyota crew reached the DSP with a massive Class T lead, but in second overall for all the cars.
But yeah, I think everybody's battling. It's not easy out there, you know, it is slippery. But yeah, I think we just be cautious and get it to the end.
That brings us to Class FIA, the place where you will find a string of Dakar specification racing cars. Someone who has been to Dakar many times is Janelle de Villiers and co-driver Dennis Murphy. De Villiers lost loads of time on Friday due to broken power steering, but went fastest of all in the morning loop. Yet, it was only good enough to climb up into 9th position, as there was still a gap of around 4 minutes between himself and the Motonetics KEC Racing Renault Duster of Johan van Staden and his son Sean. Mark Corbett and Rodney Burke in their Century Racing CR6 started the day in 6th place, but had to surrender that position to the Toyota Gazoo Racing SA Hilux of Shamir Variawa and Donnie Stassen, who showed great pace despite still being injured from the day before.
I've got to maneuver my body just to not to add pressure on the back while we hit something.
Variawa also managed to move ahead of the very fast Redline Motorsport duo of Ernst Roberts and Henry Kerner. Some say Roberts is a gentleman racer, but we can tell you that the businessman is much more than that, as he completed this section of the race with the 5th fastest time in Class FIA. At the very front of the field, we had the talented pairing of Brian Baragwanath and Tay Perry in the CR6 and the cross-country debutant in the form of multiple rally champion Guy Bottrell, with Brett Cummings in the hot seat. These two cars started the day 1st and 2nd on the road, but they had serious company in the form of the 2 new Ford Rangers, driven by brothers Lance and Gareth Woolridge. And this is how it panned out. As the first car on it, Baragwanath had difficulty in finding the road. This cost him valuable time.
Yeah, we got to a tricky point where the GPS and the roadbook were off, and guys are showing us to go this way, but we weren't sure who to trust and what to do, so we wasted a lot of time there. That mixed up all the results.
Bottrell, on the other hand, took to this new sport like a duck to water, and halfway through the morning's loop found himself in the overall lead of a national cross-country race. But shortly after, he too lost the plot and wrong-slotted in the forest, dropping out of the lead and down the order.
In the forest, we seem to be having GPS problems. We weren't getting any signal through to the GPS.
Meanwhile, younger Woolridge, brother Gareth, was having a clean run from behind the wheel of the new Ranger and running near the front of the field until this happened. This is navigator Boyd Dreyer with his recollection of the incident.
The instructions were quite busy, and I was going, and all of a sudden I was flipping about 50 meters late on a 90 left, and we managed to get straight line between 2 trees, and then Gareth couldn't see the one tree parked right there through the A pillar, and we smashed into it, unfortunately.
Nevertheless, the car made it out of the woods and Woolridge reached the DSP in a fine 4th place overall. But an even finer 1st place was beckoning for older brother Lance and co-driver Alvin Vonk. Woolridge was pushing hard as always and survived a few scary moments along the way. When they reached the DSP in Dahlstrom for a quick break, the stopwatch revealed that the new Ranger had an overall race lead of 1 minute and 34 seconds.
Then we had a puncture in the last 25 Ks as well, so not a smooth run, but car's all here in one piece and ready to go again.
After a very quick break for both man and machine, the remaining crews had to head out for one last time, this time to tackle a combination of both the Tontelduis and Dahlstrom loops. Just more than 100 kilometers stood between the remaining crews and a finish, or even better, a victory. The earlier part of the race had already claimed a number of victims, so only a handful of Class G crews remained in the battle. When the mud and dust finally settled in Dahlstrom, Lani brothers, Cecil and Alardis, recorded a dream result by claiming the 3rd and final step on the podium, and that in their first ever race. What a story. Did this mean that the Mosterts cruised to yet another victory? Well, almost. The Skalkberger Motorsport Can-Am was the leading Class G car until mere kilometers from the end when it suffered suspension failure. The brothers limped home, but had to settle for 2nd place in the end. This meant that Dean Bradbury and Timmy Boertzes recorded their 2nd consecutive victory here in Dahlstrom in as many years, after also claiming the win in 2020. A great result.
We took the first lap, just kept it there, didn't break anything, and we just finished the race, and that's who ended up first.
And how about this for a story? 2020 Special Vehicle champion Tim House took a huge time penalty after failing to finish the morning loop. But after his bat was fixed, the Class A crew fought back to complete the final loop and record a 2nd place finish. But Class A was all about these two. Lance Trathuri and Adrian Roots, the big man, completed a full house. Fastest in qualifying, fastest on every single racing loop. And what a sight to see him manhandle that big monster. Win number 1 for the big dog in 2021.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy. I mean, I'm very grateful for it. It's been, hard work.
Here's the confirmation of Lance's big win in the special vehicle category. Bradbury was 2nd overall and 1st in the Gs, followed by the Mostert brothers and then the Lani brothers, who rounded out the Class G podium. Back to the action in Class T of the production class category and the battle between the string of Ford Rangers and the Hilux of the Horn brothers. Well, on this occasion, that race never materialized. The likes of Bernard Johnston, Force Prinsloo and class debutants Christo Rose did what they could, but their fight was always going to be for 3rd place. That's because Malcolm and Frans Koch did well to make 2nd place all their own after early setbacks and a clean run on Saturday. But on this occasion, the Horns were simply in a class of their very own. Not only did they dominate Class T by claiming a more than 20-minute victory, but they very nearly stood on the 2nd step of the overall podium. Johan was tired, but very pleased.
Our bodies are broken. But yeah, we had a good run. Vanna was excellent with the navigating today. The car we didn't have to get out once.
And that finally brings us to the conclusion of the MPUMALANGA400 here in Dahlstrom. We know who won the rest of the battles, but who was going to win the overall war? The contenders, Brian Baragwanath, Guy Bottrell, and the 2 Fords driven by Lance and Gareth Woolridge. But before we get into them, we have to mention the trials and tribulations of Shamir Variawa, who survived his back injury only to succumb to suspension damage near the end of the race. But if there was a prize for the drive of the day, it had to go to Janelle de Villiers. The Dakar legend completed the day's racing more than 6 minutes faster than anyone else, but yet it was only good enough for 5th in class, as 4th went to the very quick and ever consistent Ernst Roberts in his Redline Motorsport VK56. So we still had 5 crews fighting for the coveted podium positions. Problem is that a podium only makes provision for 3. So 2 crews were going to miss out this time. Brian Baragwanath and Tay Perry were in contention for victory early on and were once again on a late charge when he slid a little bit wide in a corner, hit a gate post and hooked reverse a little prematurely, damaging the gearbox in the process and forcing them to call it a day. And then there were three. The two Rangers, driven by the Woolridge brothers, and the Hilux, driven by rally champion and stand-in driver Guy Bottrell. The rally champion did a great job and just managed to sneak past the Ford of Gareth Woolridge to steal a great second position. So happiness in the Toyota camp for sure, but for once the limelight belonged to Ford, who experienced a dream debut for the brand new petrol and turbo-powered Ranger. Gareth was happy with his third place, but it was an emotional and emphatic victory for Lance Woolridge, co-driver Alvin Vonk, and the entire Ford camp who worked exceptionally hard to make it all happen.
Yeah, we've got a lot of ideas already, just after the prologue yesterday, we already had, okay, we can do that, we can do this. And now after the race, we've both got a whole lot more. So yeah, we're just very, very excited for the future.
Here's the confirmation of how things stacked up in the production car category. A huge victory for Lance Woolridge and Bottrell, the Toyota, in the Ford Sandwich. An equally impressive victory and overall result for the Class T Hilux of Johan and Werner Horn, who kick off their title defense in style. Next up, the famous Sugar Belt 400. It takes place in the sugarcane fields around Easton in KZN, not far from the Ford team's home base, who will be eager to maintain their early season form, while Toyota will no doubt throw caution to the wind to return to their winning ways. All the slip sliding action was brought to you by Toyota Gazoo, Ford, Pirelli, and new sponsor, Ural.